I'd rather get one really good experienced person over three juniors. When you're small and you've got a limited budget, unfortunately, your first hire should actually be some of your most expensive. And the reason for that is because they're gonna form that foundation that is so key to making sure that it doesn't take you 10 iterations to get it right. It takes you two or three.
Yeah.
And so whatever you think you're saving in salary cost, you're going to be eaten up on the product return, the warranty claims.
They say it's lonely at the top. They're right. But you don't have to scale your company alone. Welcome to the Scaling CEO. I'm Glenn Gow, the CEO Success Coach. On this podcast, I sit down with top performing CEOs to uncover the hidden patterns and frameworks behind their success so you can avoid common pitfalls and accelerate your company's growth. Now, on to the show. My guest today is Francois Byrne, the CEO of Hybrid Power Solutions. Francois is an engineer who embodies the phrase opportunity-driven. He founded Hybrid Power Solutions nearly a decade ago, starting in his parents' basement with a singular focus, building products that solve high-value problems. His company designs and manufactures industrial-grade, fuel-free power systems for the toughest job sites in the world: construction, mining, and the military. He's not just selling green tech, he's selling a better ROI, better safety, and relentless reliability. As he puts it, his customers are making their living using our product, and if it goes down, it's dollars lost for them, not just an inconvenience. Francois, it's great to have you on the Scaling CEO.
Thanks, Ken. I really appreciate it.
Right before launching Hybrid Power Solutions, you were the CEO of Mode Society, an online platform for emerging fashion designers. Now, this is incredibly different from what you're doing now. Tell us about that pivot, about staying in the world of solving high-value problems and yet doing something completely different.
Yeah, look, they're 100%, totally unrelated and absolutely opposite in nature. This was kind of a tail end of an MBA little project that got some legs, right? Like we were starting to develop a website and stuff like that, and the beauty of the business model there is we were going to get all these independent designers to kind of submit their designs on our platform. We would have the public capable of coming in and voting for the one they actually want to see produced. And so you had that really big initial buy-in, right? Because you have people who are feeling like they're invested in voting into this process. And then we would go out there and we'd actually produce the garment. And then people could buy it, right? And those who voted would get kind of like a discount or a pre-order.
Sounds like a great idea to me.
Yeah. So I think the idea was solid. I think I quickly realized that fashion wasn't exactly for me. I didn't really know the back end of fashion in any way, shape, or form. So it didn't have the legs that HPS does, that's for sure. But it was really good fun, with like pitch competitions and stuff like that. So I guess in a way, it kind of prepped me for the world I'm in today, where it's all about you start off with that pitch competition, you start off with those initial sales meetings, stuff like that. It was a good kind of practice round, let's call it that.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
I love that perspective. You said, I've seen incredible technology that never gets into a revenue generating company because the sales process wasn't there. Now, this is a classic engineer founder trap.
Yeah.
So how did you intentionally build a sales and distribution engine and not just a better battery to scale your company?
Yeah, it's you can spend a lifetime perfecting a product. You really can, right? And I still think that our product isn't perfect. It really isn't, right? Like it's okay, it functions awesome. Don't get me wrong. But is there 1,000 other things I'd love to see in these systems? 100%. And I think what hardcore engineering entrepreneurs get stuck in is we got to perfect this. We got to perfect this so we can launch. You kind of got to make that call, and it's probably a little bit earlier than you're comfortable to just get product out there, because at the end of the day, you're going to realize what you've designed and also the problems you thought you were going to encounter that you solved in the lab are not the real products, the problems that you're going to face out there. Like for example, when we launched our backpacks, the original one, almost 7 years ago now, we had done some little bit of shock and vibrations, and quite frankly, we had like rolled it downstairs with a 1,000 times or something like that, right? It was super basic testing because you're a struggling entrepreneur, you just use what you can, and we'd done that kind of testing and it worked really well, and we said, like, okay, great, this is a super solid product. What we ended up realizing is over time, it wasn't just about the shock, but it was also vibration because these products, these fuel free generators live on the back of an F-150, and they would just get trampled all day long. They would just get just shock and vibration all day long, and the tabs inside the metal enclosure inside the pack would actually eventually break. So it's the kind of thing that you sort of thought you were planning for. You thought you had a solution already, and then you launch it out there, and then you realize, okay, wow, we need to go back to the drawing board. So um, you really do have to focus on, you know what, let's just get that product out there. As long as you're communicating with your customer and you fix their problems, they're going to work with you, especially
Yeah,
on novel technology. Like, they're going to want to see that succeed, both because they just think it's super cool, and secondly because your product should have some kind of ROI or other element that makes it so appealing to these guys that they want to see it through to the end.
that's great. That's
Mhm.
great. Now, you have written that you used to hire young guns with bright eyes, big ideas, and limited experience, but now you're hiring for experience. Let's talk about that shift and what was the learning you went through to make that shift?
Yeah, look, if HPS was done tomorrow and I started all over again, because for some reason I feel like I'd still get back to it no matter what. The entrepreneurship calling is for me for sure. Yeah, I definitely I'd rather get one really good experienced person over three juniors, and when you're small and you've got a limited budget, and especially those first hires, especially if you're bootstrapped, you're like, you know what, a $50,000-$60,000 individual seems a lot better than a $100,000 to $200,000, right? And um, unfortunately, your first hire should actually be some of your most expensive, and the reason for that is because they're gonna form that foundation that is
Right.
so key to making sure that it doesn't take you 10 iterations to get it right. It takes you two or three,
Yeah.
and so whatever you think you're saving in salary cost, you're going to be eaten up on the product return, the warranty claims, the loss of business, right? Those are huge. Like, we did go through some times where, for example, we had a software issue, right, which was a major mistake that was made by one of our teams, and a more junior member that would have been caught by somebody senior, and it probably cost us north of $500,000 in direct cost to get that software update redone, because we had to get the product back, or we had to send technicians all over the place to do that software update. So yeah, I can't advocate enough for just hiring some good people to start, and then just having junior people underneath them, because they're going to catch those mistakes for you, right? And
Yep.
I think that's
Yep.
the best way to kind of start. And obviously, if you can get them an equity portion, and that helps reduce your salary cost, that's a great way to kind of get that hybrid thing. And they also get that that buy-in, because they're part of the team, they're part of that financial equation.
It's a really interesting shift that CEOs have to go through because at the very earliest stages of a company, we need people that are what I call scrappy, meaning they're going to do whatever it takes to make something happen. And sometimes they're junior, sometimes they're senior, but you eventually reach a point where you recognize your success is predicated on building a great leadership team
Correct.
and having the right people in the right positions as you grow enable you to grow a lot faster than you would otherwise. So it's a great lesson. Um, let's talk about one of the new products you have here called Solar Tarp.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit in the concept of scaling. Where did this come from, and how does this fit into your scaling plans?
Yeah, the relationship you have with their client is so important. There's not enough CEOs, especially on the larger side. If you go to, if you scale to where you're over, say, 20 people, for example, I think your CEO and your C-suite team starts to get dissociated a little bit with the customer base. They're not on site as much as they used to be. They're not talking directly to the clients on a day-to-day basis. And the solar tarp really is the epitome of knowing what your client wants. What we realized within primarily the construction, but also, say, military and surveillance industry, is that battery systems and hybrids are great. They're great tools. Um, But the issue is the setup of solar makes it almost impractical. So if you look at solar panels in the really classic installation, it's pouring concrete foundation, it's steel tubes, it's nuts and bolts. It's an involved process, and the reason it's involved is because you're basically setting yourself up a big glass sail somewhere out there, outside
Right.
to the elements. So it could take 2-3 weeks to get a proper array set up. The problem with that is that when you're talking about those industries, surveillance and construction, stuff like that, you've got projects that can be a month, they can be 6 months, they can be 3 years, right? And that's 3 years is kind of like the top end of a large construction project. It doesn't make sense to spend 2-3 weeks and thousands of dollars to set up these arrays. So the pain point there is, how do we set up a solar system in minutes? Okay. Or even a couple of hours and be effective. And so the solar tarp is that kind of next leap where we can now have people who are pretty much untrained, that they can follow a very simple guide and deploy solar anywhere in a matter of minutes. And that's the concept with the solar tarp. And it's a product that's going to evolve. Once again, we've just launched it. We're going to start to take pre-orders very shortly, and we're going to be really starting to produce thing in kind of Q1 of 2026. But it's going to be evolving. I know it's going to be evolving because we've perfected what we think it's perfect. The customer is going to tell us ultimately what they think it is. And the concept there is that you can take these 10 by 4 foot rolls, and there's like a 1 foot diameter when they're all rolled up, and they weigh like 30-40 pounds. They're really nice and light, and you can deploy them anywhere. You can just unroll them, plug them into each other, plug them into our Spark or our Terra, and you got solar, which is super cool to see.
Well, it sounds like being close to the customer enabled you to understand another level of problem that they have, which
Mhm.
was not directly associated with your initial solution, and yet you've seen, hey, we can solve a problem that everybody's been complaining about for a long time because you saw something no one else could see.
Exactly. And making your product as easy to say yes to as possible is super important, right? And I think this is just another tool in that arsenal of clients saying yes.
That's great. Now you've been at this for almost 10 years. So think about our audience here, CEOs and investors and board members. What do you tell a CEO who's maybe earlier stage than you and they're grinding it out and they're just struggling to find that next level of scale? What are the tips you can give to them about scaling?
So one of the major things I've been leaning on lately is partnerships. And
Ah,
um, yeah, and I think it's one of those things I've always had. Like, I love partnerships. I love the capability of talking to another company that has complementing skill sets and growing together. Um, and for a small startup, you're lost in the noise. You're not going to have that like, for example, with us, Milwaukee comes out with a similar product. It doesn't really matter if the product is completely inferior than to ours, because at the end of the day, everybody knows Milwaukee, right? And that's hard to compete. And any startup's going to kind of go through that really difficult time of getting their name out there, getting their brand out, and all that kind of stuff. So partnerships are kind of this rocket fuel that allow you to, if you do it right, to really be able to partner with people who have a brand, who have that
right.
marketing. They've already established themselves in that, and they're experts in that, but they're probably not experts in what you do if you find that proper match. And so you can kind of create this complementing scenario where you're potentially white labeling or you're co-branding your product, or if it's a service, you've got them as some form of like distribution partner or advertising partner as well. So there's a lot of things you can do to really get yourself to that next level. And yeah, you know what, it might take a hit on your margin, but really the temporary pain is you're creating it's just a massive foundation for the rest of your career, rest of your company's career, right? And I think leveraging that at an early stage, really, really important.
I tell a lot of CEOs, look, you can build a product faster than a larger company can, but you can't build a channel of distribution and customer interaction the way a larger company can. And that's where a partnership comes into play. Let's take advantage of what that larger company has done over many, many years and give them something that they actually want to get to their customers. And so
Yeah.
it sounds like that's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, and my only regret is I haven't done it earlier. We're starting to work on some really major projects or partnerships here right now, but it's something I should have focused on a lot earlier. So I think mistake on my end, but something somebody can learn from for sure.
There we go. That's why we're here. So let's talk about my favorite topic, which is artificial intelligence.
Mhm.
Now, you're launching an IoT platform to manage your power systems. So, as AI gets better at predictive maintenance and energy optimization, how will it change your scaling strategy?
Yeah, AI it's a funny one, right? Super hot topic, obviously. Great tool for any business owner, any entrepreneur. Also can be very misleading. It can wreak havoc on creativity, so just be careful. Um, you know, uh, but with our systems, what we're trying to do is we're trying to optimize our setups. So, for example, we've got a Spark, which is like a 24 kVA. It's a big box. It's the size of a not a shipping container, a pallet. So to put it in perspective, right? It's kind of that size, and it replaces typically diesel generators. And our most common setup is a hybrid with solar. Okay, so you've got a solar panel array, you've got a diesel generator that's hooked up as a backup to all that, and then you've got our battery system, which kind of creates that microgrid aspect to it. So what we're trying to do is with this remote monitoring capability, the first step is just having that capability of seeing exactly what's going on at any point in time anywhere in the world, right? Through cellular data communication and potentially even satellite moving forward. So you're talking about GPS location and then how much solar's coming in, how much wind, if you had wind set up and all those other things, fuel savings, CO2 savings, all that into one neat place. The other thing too is that you can put 100 of these units on one single platform. So like if you're an owner of 100 of these units, you could actually see all of them and pick and choose which one you want to see and see all the light data or have a group data, see which, what's your overall cost return on investment, right? Um, but leveling of that up, we want to use AI or predictive analytics to be able to make intelligent decisions. So in our systems, when you have solar coming in, you've got a generator and you've got the battery, you have to make a decision on where you grab power from and how much of your battery you want to drain. So, for example, if we were in a situation where it's 5 in the morning, it's 5 a.m. and sun is about to come out, and the battery's at 15%, and typically we turn on the generator at 15% to start charging the battery. Well, we want to make sure that the system will automatically say, you know what, let's go down to 10% because I think with that 5% extra of batteries, we can make it till 6 or 7 a.m. when that sun comes out and starts recharging that battery, right?
Right.
And that may not sound like a huge deal. Let's just open up 5%, whatever. But from a financial perspective, if we had triggered that generator in the morning and we had gone through a full charge cycle, so gone from that 15% all the way up to the 80, 90%, whatever we set it to, it would have cost us, it could, maybe 10 liters of fuel or 3 gallons, right? Doesn't sound like a lot, but that's $15 times 365 days a year. That
Yeah.
starts adding up. And then if you have 100 units of these deployed, that's a lot.
Right.
So you start getting into this point where it makes small little tweaks over time that add up to some huge ROIs. And it also, what it does is provide the customer with that data analysis that allows them to be able to size up systems on future sites a lot more accurately. Because one thing we've found, especially within the construction industry, is that there is just such little their decision making process on power is like cavemen rudimentary at best. It is, I've used this on this site before in the past and it works, so we're going to keep doing that.
Right.
Really, nobody's done the analysis of how much power they're actually needing, what's their fuel burn, all this kind of stuff. So this AI portion allows us to automate a lot of these tasks and just optimize our system to the next level.
That's great. Fantastic. So, Francois, we are out of time, and this has been wonderful. I really appreciate you sharing some of these insights into growing a company.
Yeah,
So,
no
how can
problem.
people reach you?
Yeah, so we're hybridps.ca. That's our main website. I am also quite active on LinkedIn, so feel free to follow me, Francois Byrne, and interact with me. I love hearing from customers, investors. Investors love to come by and see our facility as well. So that's something that's open to pretty much anybody, customers and investors. So yeah, reach
Fantastic.
out to me there. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Yeah.
That's a wrap for today's episode of The Scaling CEO. If you found this valuable, be sure to like, subscribe, and share with a fellow CEO who could benefit. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please give us a quick rating as it really helps more people find the show. I'm Glenn Gow, the CEO Success Coach. See you next time for more proven strategies to grow your business and leadership.